Hello. Oh, the sun is going away. Anyway, so um, happy December. It's December, depending on what part of the world you are in. And yeah, so every day this month, I'm going to be posting videos to talk a little bit about Afropole, the Build Black Globally movement, just like what I mean, when I say some of the stuff that I say. I realize that I have conversations with individual people about Afropole, about Build Black, just like all the things that, are really important to me as it relates to what I see as a future of like us as a people. And yeah, I feel like I have these conversations separately, but I need a place to just put all of this information. So when someone asks, I can just be like, here. So each of the videos is gonna, talk about a different component of the Afropole, of the Build Black Globally movement, just like terminology, thoughts. I'll be asking myself questions. Maybe I'll talk to people. I don't know how this is gonna go, but I know that I want to do it because I want this to be a consistent part of my practice in terms of sharing, just like my ideas and thoughts, and just galvanizing this movement, because I believe the future of Black is global, and the future of, our rising as a people has to start with us honoring who we are in our distinct corners of the world, and then using that to kind of come together. So, Afropole. So first of all, the name has nothing to do with pole dancing, because there's actually like a website, Afropole, which is like, Black Pole Dancers Unite, which shout outs to them, because pole dancing is a very extreme cardio and muscle intense sport. But that's you're not going to get that kind of action here. So you don't have to worry about going to find an OnlyFans for Afropole. It doesn't exist. There isn't one. Afropole, like the name of it, came from like North Pole, South Pole, Afropole. So this idea that like, no matter where we are, sort of like, we attract each other to this like central place. And in that central place, we connect, we grow, we build, etc. And the inspiration for the Afropole comes just from my own upbringing. So I was born and raised in the DMV. Which obviously means I'm from Maryland, because, people from D.C. say they're from D.C. and people from Virginia don't associate with the DMV, hashtag they're bougie. But I'm obviously from Maryland, from PG County, Prince George's County. And yeah, also this is one take. I'm not doing this multiple times, so y'all gonna get what y'all get. Also, don't mind my glasses. I don't know what's wrong with them. They keep just like falling down. No, I don't need them medically. But, I like the way they look. I like the way they frame my face. Anyway, so I was born in PG County, born to immigrant parents. Both of my parents are Ghanaian. And I was raised in immigrant communities, but went to school in PG County. So predominantly Black neighborhood. Obviously, I suffered the suffering of every African child, which is the African booty scratcher suffering. So there was like a deep divide, honestly, growing up between me and what I call, then Black Americans, because, for us, they always ask us those questions, like, how'd your parents get here? Jungles, did they swing? Y'all got phones? Y'all got planes? Like, etc. So, and my parents, and especially my dad, and his like desire to really connect me with Ghana, and also to disconnect me from certain types of stereotypes about being Black in America, was very much like, you are not them, you are Ghanaian, like own your Ghanaian identity, you are Black, and your Blackness is about being Ghanaian and African, etc. Not, in spite of all that though, obviously I grew up in PG County, so I feel like my isms are very Black American, and so, that's something we'll talk about in a completely different video, but that's something worthy of noting, is that in spite of my, let's say, cultural heritage, I still, I also identify with certain parts of Black American culture. But that's complicated and will be expanded upon in a separate video. But after high school, I went to university. I would say in university, that's when I found out that, I was obviously not African enough, because, when you go to university, then the Africans, like the ones who come from the continent of Africa, really make it clear that, oh, you didn't go to high school here. You don't know this slang word. You didn't watch this like TV show. You don't know this song. So you are not Ghanaian enough. And I also found myself, really promoting causes having to do with being Black in America. And there's something I was saying on another video, the issue of, Africans in universities being, either, well, now increasingly what I call princes. And so there's like a class element that makes that also a very different relationship. So here I was in university, I was told I was Ghanaian, but like not Ghanaian enough. And then also my friends were all, Caribbean, Black American, things like that. So really trying to negotiate that part of my identity. Then I moved to Louisiana. Now, yes, I'm from Maryland, and yes, Maryland is technically a southern state because it's technically right below the Mason-Dixon line. But I don't think you'll meet many Marylanders who consider themselves truly southern. And the history of the South, obviously, and the way we were exposed to it was kind of liberal because we're right outside of D.C. So it's, we went to Blacks and Wax Museum. My curriculum in high school was all Black, Black authors, everything. So this idea that like I wasn't being taught about myself is like not completely my reality, because PG County, how we gonna do it? How we for dorm, But when I went to Louisiana, I realized this was the first time that I had actually been in what I would say a completely Black American space. And one of the things that really stood out to me was just how African everyone was, which is obviously people like, duh, they're Black, but there's like a very different type of Africanness about Black people in the South, about how they see family, about how they relate to you, even the way they greet. In Ghana, for example, when someone is greeting you, it's like a complete set. It's like, how are you? How's the family? I have to ask like a set of questions about your well-being. Whereas I think, in the DMV, outside of immigrant circles, it's kind of just like, oh, how are you? That kind of, how are you? And like, oh, okay, that's fine. But the South, it's very like, how you? Where are you from? Like, how's your mama? Like, because my mother did come visit, how's she? She doing good? Like, those kind of things. And just other things that I was just like, this is very curious, because I had a whole experience of like, Africans and African Americans are very disconnected. And then I had a very different experience of Africans, African Americans, and first gen or Afro diasporans are very disconnected. And then I get to the South and it's like, not as disconnected as I thought. Right. And obviously it goes beyond sort of these high level things. It goes to food, it goes to dancing, it goes to time, right? Like how time is valued, priorities, spirituality, like a lot of things. So I really started to ask myself questions like, okay, are we, what is our relationship? And, for a lot of my kids, because I went there to teach, I was the first African that a lot of them had met, which I felt like I'm a Walmart brand African. So if I'm the first African you're meeting, you might want to find a name brand one so you can get like a more authentic experience. Because I just recently found out I wasn't African enough. So, But yeah, so it was just like an interesting thing talking to them about just like geography and African history, West African history specifically, and just various things. But that's what kicked off in my mind this idea that I graduated and I came to realize that the things that my parents were trying to socialize about African Americans or Black Americans wasn't necessarily true. But then when I went to the South, it really clicked that like there's something here that's off and on. And I really need to understand that. Then I went to grad school and I spent the second year in London. And that was a very interesting experience because I felt like being Black in London was different. First of all, being Black in London meant that you had an ethnic identity. There was nothing like Black British. Like Black British terminology, Black British identity is relatively new. Obviously there have been Blacks in Britain, but this idea of being Black British is relatively new. Even when I went there, I got there in October, which is Black History Month in the UK, but I had I feel like in America, McDonald's will let you know it's Black History Month. But in London, there was nothing. I was on a campus, and there was nothing that indicated to me that it was Black History Month. The reason I knew is because I went to Peckham to get my hair done. I was getting a weave done, and I saw a bashment flyer that was like, Black History Month bashment or something. And I was like, oh, okay, right. So I guess we're not celebrating Black history on a college campus. It was very weird. But I also came to understand that Blackness in Europe is different because people do retain their ethnic identity, as I said earlier. And so it creates a different type of experience of being Black in a majority Black country. And so I found that really eye-opening for me because, the kind of anger there is in America around race and race relations is present but distinct in Europe because there's almost like a class system of Blackness. Like, of course, in America, there's the light skin, dark skin, there are the things, but in Europe, it felt very like there are ethnic class distinctions, right? Like one might say the Caribbeans are, let's say, the African Americans of the UK because they more or less built the country during, World War II when they were, brought over, et cetera, and they are also get the short end of the stick, in terms of how they're treated, those kind of things. So, just like understanding some of that, and also how you see there's so many more mixed raceness. I think it's my experience in Europe, and it makes I get it because there are literally 6.5 Black people. They all live in the same place, and then there are so many other factors. Like how chiseled Black British men are. Okay, anyway, it's all love. So yeah, I mean, that also opened my eyes to okay, there's the experience of being Black in America. There's the experience of being first gen. There's the experience of being, in the South and Black. There's the experience of being European and Black. And then I moved to Ghana. And quite frankly, the experience of being Black in a Black country is also very interesting. If you're aware of your race in a country where race is not, let's say, worthy of awareness, you flow in the space different. Because I feel like you're looking at things like power dynamics, you're looking at language, you're looking at how people present themselves, their identity, their culture, in a country where everyone is you, right? Everyone is Black. And so ostensibly, you should feel free to be, let's say, your Black self or whatever your ethnic group self is in any corner, any space in the country. Notwithstanding ethnic issues, but saying this idea that an authentic African presentation is okay, it should be normal. But then you get to the issue of colonization and how that has affected people's mindsets, and it's just a whole other thing. So knowing all of these things, I was like, you know what? I feel like there is value. And then I went to the Caribbean for the first time while I was in Ghana. And I found that experience, I went to, it was Jamaica, because I found that experience interesting because I see the Caribbean identity as a African American identity with sovereign rights, if that makes sense. So they're their own presidents, they have their own land, et cetera, et cetera. But to be Black in the Caribbean is a very contrived identity, in the same way to be Black in America is contrived, right? I feel like to be Black in Europe may or may not be as contrived because there's ethnic relationships. So at least you maintain some idea of, let's say, where you're from. Obviously on the continent, in some ways you do, to whatever extent we can claim our national identity, we can at least claim our ethnic identity. But the Caribbean is it's a little bit of everybody. And yes, we own, we've come to own the land, but it's a fraught thing. It's just Blackness is such a fascinating thing for me because of its expression around the world. And so what I was was, no matter where I go, the expression of being Black in that place is different. But the experience of being Black in that place is the same, right? The expression of Blackness, like how we talk, how we cook, what we say, how we relate to other cultures around us, that could be different because of our history, the things, we know the things. But the experience of being Black, that is like what it feels like to be Black, on the average is very similar, and I thought, wow, like what if we really harness that? What if we harness the things that make us different to elevate the thing that makes us the same? If we said, okay, as a Black European, I have, access to this, I don't have access to that, I'm in a cosmopolitan space, I have access to many languages, just different things, but I don't have access to some other set of things that maybe my Black American people do, for example, like a platform as large and as loud as the United States of America. Or as my African brethren do, which is like everything on earth, all the goodness of the land and everything that the Lord God has blessed us with that we clearly don't appreciate enough. So in my mind, I was like, there's got to be a way. And so Afropole is a brokerage that's trying to really find those connections, right? How do we connect? And I focus on business. My thing is commerce, economy is a very powerful tool for, changing livelihoods. And I've recently been reading a lot of comments about wealth being more than just money, and I accept that. And so I think I'm sort of, it's an evolving ethos, but I accept that the goal is to build generational wealth, and the goal is to connect people. And in my initial iteration, Afropole was all about connecting businesses, because the idea was wealth, money, connect the businesses, build a value chain, right? That let's say the African farmer connects to the American manufacturer, connects to the global audience of retailers, just the idea that like we can connect to each other in this like really interesting economic way and then rise because of it. But I think I'm realizing that I do need to think a bit more broadly about what generational wealth, specifically what wealth means for Black people, because yes, 100%. It's money is like, I'm not out here trying to be esoteric. Like money is money. We need it. But at the same time, I'm like, there's so much trauma that if we had mental wealth, you get what I'm saying? Like that could also be useful. There is a lot of physical trauma, and we pass down physical trauma in our health. And so if we had health, that would be useful. Obviously, we can't take on all the things at once, but it's giving me pause. So anyway, what is the Afropole? The Afropole is a brokerage which seeks to connect African and Afro-diasporan businesses all around the world so that they can increase their wealth, so that they can build, together, so that they can honor their unique distinctions, and create something new and interesting for the world to see, to consume, that they benefit from. None of this like free, TikTok consumption of culture without any, recourse for the people, but like an investment in us and investment in ourselves. And the way that I see that, like, so what is a physical manifestation of that? And it took me a long time. Like, we launched in 2017. And I said that for 3 years, I would just be innovating. Like the first 2 years, I'd be in the red. I'm happy to just like lose money because I was like, I need to try things. So I did it. I did events. I've done merchandise. I've done things, I guess just events and merchandise. But, just like I've played around with different types of things to see like what specifically is the way for me to manifest this goal that I have. And I've come to the conclusion that it really is going to be kind of all of those things. So 4 expressions, which is, one is events, because I feel like the face-to-face, though obviously that's limited now, but the face-to-face is really an opportunity for us to break down the barriers of stereotypes, break down the barriers of anger, of mistrust, etc. I think when you're talking to someone on the internet, it's very easy to just like pass arbitrary comments about them and what they say about you and so on and so forth. We're always seeing this fighting, the Nigerians versus the Black Americans, the Black British versus the the Black Americans. Like, it's just like a lot of back and forth. But for me, I feel like if everyone just like brought it down like a little bit, took off the airs of, say, Twitter or Instagram, and just sat with themselves around, let's say, controversial topics, or seemingly non-controversial topics. I mean, we did do an event after Black Panther, and that really went a lot of different ways, with people talking about their experiences with Black Americans and Africans, things like that. But for me, I really value the opportunity to bring people together, to have that face-to-face, to break down those walls, to learn something new, and to walk away with a consciousness that is different from what you came into the conversation with. So that's the first thing. The second thing is communication. So I have a newsletter, and it's called the Mojishola Report. Wake up to well. Shout out to my Yoruba people. I just love the word. Maybe I'll name my daughter that. Hopefully my husband won't mind. But yeah, the Mojishola Report is a compilation of different stories, different videos, articles, tweets from all around the diaspora. So something that was really important for me was to, in some ways, uncenter the locus of Blackness in America. And this is coming from, an American Black person, but I feel like, the experience of being Black in America can sometimes be the loudest experience of Blackness. And that's valuable because African Americans, Black Americans have done a lot for academia. On some level, you want to be like, okay, well, what the rest of y'all doing when it comes to race? But at the same time, because even I'm here in Ghana, our Pan-African leader came to America to really get his mind right. So, I mean, honor to where honor is due, but at the same time, it's such a loud presence that sometimes it negates other voices. So I wanted the Mojishola Report to be a space for other Black ideas, other Black experiences. So you'll see stories from the Caribbean, you'll see stories from the continent, you'll see Black British stories, Black French stories, and for me, it's really important that it has that diversity so that when we're talking about Blackness, we'll think twice about saying, sweeping statements, let's say. And again, I will talk more about why that needs to be done that way in another video. I mean, there's a lot. I've said a lot of things in this video. You feel me? But I'm not finna do a 60-minute video. You feel me? I don't got that time. So you're gonna get this work, a little bit at a time. But the newsletter it'll be undergoing some changes over the course of the next 3 months. But definitely, subscribe and get your weekly dose of new information about dope stuff that Black people are doing around the world. So that's the second thing. The third thing is actually the work. So building the platform of connecting Black businesses. And so more on that to come. Hashtag watch this space. If you haven't already, follow We The Culture Co. on Instagram. You could do that because, it's a little bit of it is there. But essentially what I'm trying to do is find out what is the best way to connect people with products here, people with products there, people with products there. And when I do this, it's like, in my mind, there are 4 corners of the Black experience, which is the Americas, the Caribbean, Europe, the continent. And the continent, I'm mostly talking about West Africa because that's my experience and that's what connects us on the transatlantic. But, all of Africa included. Everybody, all of sub-Saharan Africa included. Yes, I said exactly what I said. All of sub-Saharan Africa included, and yeah, the Caribbean and the U.S. and Europa. And by Europe, I mostly mean the colonial Europe because that's where our people end up immigrating to. But anyway, but yeah, like how do we connect those businesses? And for me, it's starting to look like a platform. What that platform looks like and how we build those relationships, still in the air, open to suggestions. But for me, I'm starting to see that the wellness space, like there's a movement around sustainability, around eco, around green, and it is sort of co-opting indigenous knowledge, like African indigenous knowledge, Caribbean indigenous knowledge. And I feel like this is our opportunity to sort of take that back and sow that into our own businesses and our growth. So it's still a work in progress. I'm not in a hurry. It's a movement, so we got time. I mean, we don't have time, but we have time. You feel me? Like, anyway. So that is the third thing, is a platform to connect businesses so that people can make money together. Because ultimately, I need the yen, I need the euro, maybe I don't need the CD as much because the depreciation is not really, the dollar, etc. But yeah, so we need to make that money flow. And then finally, so what have I said so far? I said events, I said communications, I said merchandise. No, I didn't say merchandise, so that's the one. And then finally, it's merchandise. So something that I really am excited to do, well, I've started doing, which was capsule collections, which is essentially I would work with an artist. I worked with 2 artists so far for them to do like art. The first artist was Yao Art. He did like one big painting and then we cut it into bags. And then the second was Lloyd, who has a photography. He's my cousin. This is why we're not respectful as a people. I know he has an art name. Is it Floyd Loster or is that his username? Anyway, love you, Lloyd. He's an amazing Ghanaian photographer. And so he went to Sierra Leone and he gave me a shot from there, and we use that on a bag as well. And so yeah, just like working with artists, local artisans, everything that is touched is black to make it, from the transporters transporting to the US, like everyone, the goal is like as many people as possible are women, are young, are black, are people who may be otherwise ignored. I mean, I have a place in my heart for indigenous people. So when I talk about black people, I'm also very open to indigenous people as well as like like allies. Yeah. So merchandise is the last thing. And for me, it's just like, every tribe has a uniform. So it's like a uniform. Like if you're down with the BBG, if you're down with the Build Black Globally, hey, you're down with the BBG. Wait a minute. Hey. Anyway, if you're down with the Build Black Globally movement, then, buy the merch. So you should be seeing that on the Afropole page soon. Or if you're in Ghana, you can just go to El Loco or Shop Accra and pick up, a little something. So, yeah, that is the journey of Afropole. Feel free to leave any questions, any comments, concerns, ideas. Like I said, it's 31 days of this, so I'm really excited to engage you all on this information because I'm very passionate about it. I don't know everything, but I have done as much, a lot of work to this point to know as much as I can know, and I'm still learning. And something that I say at all of the conversations that we've had for Afropole specifically is that we enter every conversation with grace, recognizing that, you have to allow everyone to make a mistake, to grow, to try, to fall. It'll be jokes, there'll be bants, but at the end of the day, it's love, especially for my people, wherever you are in the world. So yeah, day 1, done and dusted. Yeah, okay. So yeah.